Somewhere right now, someone is watching your life, even if you don't know it. They're watching how you move, how you carry pain, how you keep getting back up when everything around you tries to knock you down. They don't say anything, but they're watching, and they're learning. You, chosen one, are becoming something far more powerful than you may realize, a blueprint. See, people think it's the most perfect, polished, put-together folks who influence the world. But that's not who God uses to shake generations. God uses the ones who've been through it. He uses the ones who've been overlooked, underestimated, misunderstood, betrayed, and broken, but who never gave up. He uses the ones who didn't have a map but found a way. The ones who didn't have support but still showed up. The ones who should have lost their minds, but instead gained their purpose. That's you. Everything you've survived, every scar you carry, every moment that tried to take you out, it all matters. Not just for you, but for them. For the ones coming up after you. For the ones who will one day say, because they made it, I can too. Your story is sacred. And it's not just about what happened to you. It's about what's being built through you. You didn't walk through all of that to keep it quiet. You didn't break generational curses just to blend in. You didn't wrestle with demons, doubt, depression, and darkness to play it safe. You were sent here as a light, as a leader, as a living testimony. And that testimony, it's going to change lives. But here's the thing about being the blueprint. It means you had to go first. It means you had to walk through valleys no one around you could understand. It means you had to navigate seasons where there were no examples, no mentors, no guidebooks. You had to figure it out, cry it out, and pray your way through it in silence. That's why it felt so lonely. That's why you felt like no one got you. That's why you often questioned, why me, God? But the truth is, it had to be you. Because you wouldn't quit. Because you would turn the pain into power. Because you would take the trauma and turn it into transformation. Because you wouldn't just survive, you would document the process through your very life. And that life would become the manual for someone else to follow. Not a fake, filtered version, but the real story. The tears, the setbacks, the moments of almost giving up, the miracles, the lessons, the healing, all of it. You see, most people want the platform without the process. They want the influence without the intimacy with God. They want the results without the refinement. But not you. You've lived this. You've endured it when it wasn't popular. You've been faithful in the background. And that's why God trusts you to carry a story so heavy, it becomes hope for someone else. This generation is hungry for realness, for truth, for something that cuts through the noise and touches the soul. And you, chosen one, have that. Not because you're perfect, but because you're proven. You've been in the fire and didn't burn. You've been in the pit and didn't perish. You've been rejected and still remained. So now, when you speak, it carries weight. Not just words, but wisdom. Not just inspiration, but authority. Because you earned it through experience. And nobody can take that from you. You're not just telling people how to rise. You're showing them that it's possible. You're not just quoting scriptures. You're living proof of them. You're not just posting motivational words. You've lived through days so dark that motivation wasn't enough. Only God was. And that's why people will listen when you speak. That's why the next generation will follow your footsteps. Because your journey wasn't glamorous, but it was God-ordained. Every no, every door that slammed, every betrayal that cut deep, it all pushed you toward purpose. And now that you're rising, now that you're finding your voice, now that you're learning how to walk with boldness and faith, you're creating a trail others will walk behind. You are the first, but you will not be the last. You're the Moses of your bloodline. You were born to lead others out of bondage, even if you had to walk through it first. You're the blueprint because God knew you wouldn't just get free for yourself. You'd reach back for others. So don't minimize your story. Don't downplay your journey. Don't hide what you've been through just to make others comfortable. What you thought was breaking you down was actually building a foundation for legacy, for impact, for generational change. You've been carrying something holy this whole time. It wasn't just pain. It was preparation. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was harvesting something new. It wasn't just waiting. It was weaving a new story, one that wouldn't just end with you, but would begin something for those coming after. You're not at the end of your story. You're at the beginning of a new chapter. One where everything you've been through starts to make sense. One where people start reaching out, not because of what you have, but because of who you've become. You've become someone that can't be shaken by storms because you are the storm. You've become someone that doesn't run from the fire because you were forged in it. And that resilience, that spirit, that anointing, it can't be taught. It's transferred, it's witnessed, and that's exactly what people are going to get from you. Not just advice, but alignment. Because you've aligned your life with truth, with purpose, with divine timing. And now you're going to help others do the same. You weren't just surviving all this time. You were being shaped into a vessel of divine wisdom. You were absorbing, reflecting, evolving. While others were chasing fame, you were chasing God's voice. While they were following trends, you were following truth. And now that truth is going to set people free, through your life, through your message, through your example. See, the most powerful blueprints are the ones that don't just tell you what to do. They show you how to walk through what almost killed you and come out with more clarity, more compassion, and more conviction than ever before. That's what you're carrying. People will feel it when they're near you. They may not understand it at first, but they'll sense the weight of your words, the depth of your presence, the healing in your voice, and you won't even need to shout. You won't need to convince them. Because true authority doesn't beg to be recognized. It's felt. You're not here to fit in. You're here to guide others out. God allowed you to experience what you did not because you were cursed, but because you were called. And in the wilderness, in the dark seasons, He was downloading blueprints into your spirit. That's why isolation was necessary. That's why you had to walk alone. Not because something was wrong with you, but because something sacred was being cultivated in you. You learned how to walk by faith, not by sight. You learned how to trust God's voice over people's opinions. You learned how to keep moving with no confirmation, no applause, and no clear outcome. That's not just strength. That's spiritual leadership. And now your life is going to illuminate paths for people who are lost in the very storms you already made it through. You'll meet someone who's battling depression, and you'll have the words that pull them back from the edge. You'll encounter someone who was abused, and you'll reflect back their worth just by seeing them. You'll speak to someone who's on the verge of giving up, and your story will become their reason to keep going. You didn't just go through for yourself. You went through for others. Because that's what chosen ones do. We carry light into darkness and spark flames in souls that thought they were dead. And while you may not have had a blueprint handed to you, you became the blueprint. You're the first to break the pattern. The first to question the toxic cycles. The first to say, "This stops with me." That's not easy. That's not light work, but it's holy work. And it's going to echo beyond you. Years from now, someone will be stronger because you were. Someone will raise their kids differently because of the healing you did. Someone will write, build, speak, lead, and love because they watched you rise. And that's legacy. That's impact. That's purpose. So even when it still feels like no one's listening, someone is. Even when it feels like nothing is working, it is. Every seed you planted in pain is about to produce a harvest of transformation for more people than you can imagine. Because real change doesn't happen through mass appeal. It happens one person at a time, one heart at a time, one story at a time. And your story is powerful. It's not pretty, but it's real. It's not polished, but it's pure. And because it's raw and honest, it's going to resonate deeper than anything fake ever could. There are people who are going to trust your words, not because you have it all together, but because they know you get it. You've cried those tears. You've sat in that pain. You've felt lost and found and broken and built all in the same week. You don't speak from theory. You speak from the trenches. And when someone hears you, they're not just hearing you. They're hearing hope. Hope that they're not too far gone. Hope that they're not alone. Hope that maybe, just maybe, their story doesn't end in pain, but in purpose. That's the power you carry now. And yes, it's heavy. Yes, it can be lonely. Yes, it can be exhausting carrying this level of spiritual assignment. But you weren't chosen for ease. You were chosen for impact. You were chosen to be the one who walked through the fire and came out with the blueprint for freedom in your hands. So now, every time you feel tired, remind yourself, it's not in vain. Every time you want to stay silent, remember, your voice breaks chains. Every time you wonder if anyone even cares, remember, God didn't preserve you for applause. He preserved you for purpose. You may not see it now. You may not feel it yet. But there's a wave of people rising behind you because of the trail you've blazed. They're watching you take steps they were too scared to take. And because of you, they're going to step forward too. You're not just telling a story. You're activating faith. You're shifting atmospheres. You're giving people a reason to believe again. And you're doing it all without even knowing how many lives you're changing, because that's how God works through the chosen. Quietly, deeply, powerfully. So if you've ever wondered why it had to be so hard, why the weight felt unbearable, why you couldn't quit even when you tried, it's because you're carrying something eternal, something that goes beyond your lifetime, something that will ripple through generations. And when it's all said and done, you'll realize it wasn't just about you becoming stronger. It was about others becoming free. Because your story was the blueprint they needed all along. And here's the beautiful truth. You don't even need a platform to start changing lives. You don't need a microphone or a spotlight. All you need is your presence, because when you walk into a room, you carry divine energy with you. You carry the atmosphere of every breakthrough you had to fight for. You carry wisdom that can't be Googled and lessons that can't be taught in school. You carry a frequency that awakens something sacred in the people around you. And that's not by accident. That's why the enemy tried so hard to silence you. That's why life hit you so hard. Because if you ever stood tall in your truth, fully aligned with who God created you to be, nothing would be able to stop the waves you'd make. But now, that version of you is here. You're not fully healed yet, but you're ready. You're not perfect, but you're real. You're not here to play small anymore, to shrink to make others comfortable, to stay quiet when your voice was made to echo across dimensions. You were trained in the shadows so you could lead in the light. You were built through pressure, tested through fire, molded through trials, because what's inside you needs to be unshakable. It's no longer about proving yourself. It's about being yourself. Because who you are now, after everything you've endured, is exactly who this generation needs. And maybe that sounds like a lot of pressure. But it's not about doing everything right. It's about being available. It's about showing up with your whole heart, with your authenticity, and letting God do the rest. This generation doesn't need perfection. They need permission to feel, to grow, to heal, to break cycles, to be bold. And you give them that simply by living in your truth. Don't underestimate how much impact one life can make. One story, one act of obedience, one yes to God's call, even when you didn't understand it, even when it cost you comfort, even when you had no proof of what was coming next. Your yes shifted something. Your surrender unlocked doors not just for you, but for people you haven't even met yet. Your healing created space for others to heal. Your courage planted seeds in the soil of future generations. And maybe you'll never get credit for it here on earth. Maybe no one will ever fully understand the price you paid behind closed doors. But heaven saw it all. And every tear, every sacrifice, every lonely night, every silent prayer, it was not in vain. God's been keeping record. And when the time is right, The same people who overlooked you will look to you for guidance. The same people who judged your journey will admire your resilience. The same people who thought your story was over will witness a resurrection they can't explain. Because favor doesn't follow trends, it follows truth. And when your life is aligned with truth, blessings have no choice but to find you. You're not just a survivor. You're a system breaker, a cycle ender, a generational shift. And whether you realize it or not, you're already paving the way for others to rise. So don't stop. Keep healing. Keep walking. Keep trusting, even when it's dark, even when it's quiet, even when it's slow. Because everything you're going through is a page in the blueprint someone else will use to build their freedom. You're not lost. You're leading. You're not forgotten. You're favored. You're not broken. You're becoming. And your becoming is not just about you. It's about them. The ones who are watching. The ones who are searching. The ones who will rise because you refuse to fall. So stand tall, chosen one.